So we want to welcome you to our work meeting on Thursday, May 1st. We want to excuse Ryan Hill, who is attending his children's graduation down at UVU, and Debbie, who's on with Zoom, that's actually on a cruise. So, and I think Lisa will be joining us when she can get here. So.
Hi, Debbie.
Can she hear us?
Just making sure she can hear us. Can you hear us, Debbie?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So, a couple of things to go through, and I know, Bryce, you had something you wanted to talk about. One thing, so we had a resident that come in and ask if we would ever consider looking at the change of the size that we allow for a home business sign. So currently, our ordinance cannot exceed 2 square feet. And which is, yeah, it's pretty small. And he said that he was wondering if there was any way that we could even extend that it could possibly be like even maybe 16 square feet, like if it was a longer sign that was maybe, 2 feet by 8 feet, or even just, because he has a home business.
What's his business?
I don't remember. Dylan. What does Dylan Robinson do? What's his business?
He does odometer stickers for cars.
Okay. But he said it's just that 2 by 2 is not very big, that he said people drive by before you really actually can even see a sign when they're that small. And I said I would bring it, we could talk about it in our... What'd she say?
2 by 2 is not very big.
No,
It was leaving you back in. It's done now.
Okay.
That was just copying you.
Well, 2 square feet is
2
2
square
foot by
feet.
a foot.
Yeah, it's not
It's
very
2 foot
big.
by a foot.
Yeah.
I guess he qualifies. I mean, there's no
2 by
conflicts
2.
of having that type of business in a residential area, I guess, because he's already applied for that.
Yeah, and I think he already has like his business license and everything. He just said, well, because he even said sometimes you'll see people and they'll have a business and it might be hanging over something and it might be like 8 feet by 2 feet or something. I don't know. But if you think this is something we might be this isn't anything, of course, we can vote on, but if you think it's something that we might be, we could put it maybe on the agenda for some other time, or have Brandon look at it and see.
Yeah, that's not
Okay.
That's
Sure.
not very big.
No, that's not.
But again, that's roadside, a roadside sign, right?
Yeah, it's for a home business. So so the ordinance I was actually looking at is 10-458, and it says home signs.
Thank you.
And it says that accessory nameplate and home occupation signs are permitted, and you don't have to have a permit to have them. You can have one accessory nameplate, but again, it's 2 square feet.
So I was kind of thinking of something else. So where can they display that at? It can't be out in the Park Street, right? Or
Usually, it's just in their front yard.
Just in their front yard.
It says home occupation signs must be attached flatly to the building, not to exceed the height of the eaves line.
Oh, okay. So it's got to be on the house. Sounds like.
But I think we do sometimes out here I've seen business signs that were in front of their houses that almost look, that's not a very big sign, that I've just seen them right in front of their yards.
Hey, you're talking about my complaint, aren't you?
No. This is a legitimate business that wants to see about having a...
Yeah, I guess as long as it doesn't impede the view of traffic. And I mean, our campaign signs are bigger than that.
They are,
You
yeah.
know.
Is there a certain size? Like if I don't know that I don't know what we necessarily do with this. If we need to have Brandon write it, so if we can just come up with something like I say, if you thought this was something worth talking about, we could put it on another agenda to actually have it be as a...
Yeah.
We should just put on that agenda.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Has he mentioned anything about neighbors or how they feel about having a bigger sign or anything
No, and I don't know that he necessarily has a sign out there yet, because he was wanting to get one made, but that's not very big. 2 square feet, that's a 1 by 2.
It's right here. That's it.
That's exactly.
Roughly. Or close to it.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll tell him then that we feel like this is something that we could discuss and maybe make some kind of a motion then at another meeting. And maybe in the meantime, if you'd be thinking about what size you think might be, maybe we can kind of look around, maybe even what we see or in other cities, what kind of a sign there might be.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So I can tell him that, because I told
Yep.
him I would bring that up. Okay. Another thing, so furnaces, we talked last time about furnaces, and so, as like Cammie mentioned, we have money in the budget because so I kind of did a little synopsis here of the different furnaces that there was. So I ended up talking to Christopher Phillips. All of them came in.
What's the name of his?
He is the Absolute.
Absolute. Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of tried to go through and compare as far as, and I called and asked questions because I'm certainly not a furnace expert, but as far as, the efficiency on them, I've learned quite a bit now about air conditioning units as far as the ton. My recommendation would be that we go with Dave Taylor. His was the lowest bid, and I feel like for everything there was, it was pretty comparable. All the furnaces were pretty comparable. I kind of asked some questions about the difference in the tons of the air conditioning units, if having a bigger one is better, and it was explained to me that not always necessarily, because you have a bigger unit, it blows out air faster, but then it shuts off faster because it's blowing it out. If you have one that's smaller, it's a little more efficient, and then it maybe is on a little bit longer, but it was explained to me that it kind of cools down the walls, the floors, the ceiling, so the air stays more cooler. So, but whatever you want to do with this, I do have the bids. If anybody wants to look through the bids, I'm happy to make you copies
This
of
is
the
it on
bids.
here, right? This is
Yeah,
the
that's
bid.
just kind of a summary. So I just went through.
Oh,
this-
so these aren't the actual bids? on
no,
here?
the actual bids look like this. Like they came in like an actual bid. And I just kind of went through and just summarized who they were, who my contact person. All 4 of them are for Hooper. I think all 4 of them would do a great job. I don't have any problems with any of them. So I just kind of went through price, point, and like I say, Dave's was the lowest, and he has done some work already here at the city for us. He's came and repaired our furnace. One thing we thought about trying to get it done this time of year is because we're not really needing air conditioning yet, and we're really not needing the furnace. So it would be, and he said he thought he could come in and do it in a weekend. But again, it's up to whatever you want to do.
So on that 100,000 for the remodel, we spent 53. Is that right?
We've spent 53. It was like 53, and
600 and some change.
yeah.
So we'll just say 54. So we
Yeah.
roughly have 20
So
or
54.
36.
No, so we have 40. We have 46.
Oh, 46. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have enough that can cover. And again, that was a decision, we either replace the furnaces or we only fix the one. But then I think I mentioned to you, they said they all share the same cold air return. They pulled off some of the fronts and some of the others are rusted. And they put them all in the building, and that was 2003. Our outside units are a little bit newer than that. They're a 2013, so they're only 12 years old, which isn't. But still, sometimes when you're changing out one, they feel like it's really more efficient because now and there's some new Freon that they're coming out with, but some feel like it's better to get the furnaces now with that old, but then if a few years down the road they change, will that still be available? So,
Okay. So this guy, he said he was going to use existing. So
well,
it says
they
Flume.
kind of all gave, we could save possibly 1,000 if we could use existing. Some say they have rebates on them. Like the one said, it could be 600 less if they used an existing evaporator coil, but they really don't know until they get into them. Like I said, I think all of them are really good. I wouldn't have an objection with any of them because all 4 of them are Hooper people.
Okay. So do you want a commitment from us now or just?
Well-
I'm. Oh, go ahead, Dale.
Well, I didn't know, this has to be something.
No.
Well,
She doesn't want a commitment. Well, go ahead.
I just didn't know if that would be on the agenda.
so we
Yeah.
already have budget money, so it's within the budget. And so if you go through our, procurement process, if it's ever anything, we just have to have 3 bids, which we had our 4 bids. So I don't know that we necessarily have to have I think it could be a consensus because it is budget money that's, we're not having to do a modification of our budget or anything.
Okay.
So whatever you would feel more comfortable with. But like I said, that would be my recommendation. And that was based on price and I didn't really see an advantage. One of them gave us one that if we ever do solar panels, we could have some heat pump, and he asked me, and I said, I really don't see us ever doing solar panels here. We maybe would, because then it was like a $51,000 furnace, but you could get $10,000 in rebates if you do the solar panels. Well, yeah, but we'd have to spend a lot more than that to get the solar panels to begin with. So,
I'm kind of leaning in favor of it. Just, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but
Yeah, if we've got the money and,
if we have the money, and
Yeah.
it's already, you might as well.
so we might have, but, so 3 of us, I guess if Debbie,
yeah.
I guess there ought to be a consensus of the
Yeah,
majority or.
I mean, we only really have to have 3 to have a quorum, they contact me quite often and say, hey, have you
Hey,
decided
sure.
yet? They want to get going on this, and so
So now, how do we pick? You recommended Dave Taylor.
well,
so-
he was the lowest price, and based on from what that's who that would be my recommendation, but whatever you feel is whatever you decide.
I wouldn't know one. I know who they are. Well, actually, I only know 2 of them. But I just know them, who they are. I don't know them personally, so I couldn't. What do you think?
Just compare what the work they're going to do.
Yeah.
That'd be it.
And I asked about warranties. Most furnaces have a warranty on them. They will guarantee their labor. I don't know. I didn't want to, because I started thinking, okay, our last furnace has lasted us 22 years, but I don't know that you can really say that anymore about anything, because we had a chest freezer that lasted us 45 years, and they don't make things as good as they used to. So I didn't feel like I could say to them, well, will this last us 20
Right.
more years? We don't know that. So,
What do you think, Morgan?
It's just
Yeah,
been
you-
really hot.
I know.
now.
I knew that's what you're gonna say.
Today it reached 82.
If it's all the same, if
You
it's
know
all
what?
the same stuff, then of course you'd have
Yeah.
whichever the lowest bid. If it's all the same
Right.
stuff.
yeah.
So are you saying it was 82 in your office?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's why we thought
Well, is
we
that from the sun or personalities or?
Yeah. Red hair.
we really do need to get going on, I feel like going on
Yeah.
something. I mean, I would think we would, are fine doing it, like I say, we have the budget money, we talked about it at our last budget meeting about, and I felt like the consensus I thought was more so let's replace all of them than just fix the one.
Yeah.
Especially since it's the 3rd time within the last 6 months we fixed it. And then I think we're kind of just waiting for something else to go out,
Okay.
but.
Yeah.
And Mayor, when you talk to them about the warranties too, this will be considered a commercial building, so that'll be a lot different than residential. So the warranties may not even apply. So that'd be a good question to ask them too.
Yeah.
So you're saying you don't get one on commercial?
Sometimes you do, but it's a lot less.
Saw left.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
something to definitely ask them, because this will be considered
Expected to be used more privately, commercial.
Yeah, one of them did mention that with commercials, sometimes they'll throw it out there, but they really don't exist. So if they're telling you, we guarantee this, it might be more of a sales pitch, they said. So,
Well, I'm okay to do it, and then
Have we got one background
you can pick it, I guess.
in this company?
on Dave Taylor,
We don't have to pick them, do we?
Debbie?
They
I
can,
mean,
I don't,
we'll just leave it up to
we
you
just have
guys.
to have if we go with the lowest bid, well, so you're saying the lowest is what you do. so
that's what I said. I
and
would
they're
go
all
with the lowest
the
bid.
same, so.
Yeah, that's what, I think, and not that we have to, but usually they do recommend we do lowest bid, unless if there's certain things that one was more superior
Because
than the
we're
other.
getting more, you know, if we're
Yes,
getting more. yeah.
Yes, that's what I think too, but when I looked through, you know, and when they kind of told me about them as far as variable speed, I know more about furnaces than I used to, but still, you kind of have to depend on what they're telling you, because that's what,
So his 39.6, we'd actually get 1,200 off of that.
off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I suspect all of them probably would have
Or
a
have some kind of a
rebate.
rebate.
That's what I was thinking, but even if you took the rebate off of all of them, his still was less. But I think maybe one of the reasons too is he does a lot of this work on the side. So sometimes you have to pay more for a company because you're paying for their, you know, brick and mortar building, for their, you know, other employees, for their advertising, and so.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good then with everybody? Okay, then let's do that. And Dylan, now you're here, we were just talking about the sign. I'd already brought that up before you came in, but, oh, okay. So anything else you'd like to add to that?
Not in particular. I think you covered most of it. I mean, it'd just be nice to have bigger than 2 feet. 'Cause
Yeah,
So how big do you want?
I don't know that I would go over 8 square feet for me, but I think that there are certain applications where 16 square feet would be nice. But I would still want it to feel like a residential area. Is still one of my concerns. Is I don't want it to feel commercial. I still.
Right.
But if somebody's driving past, they should know that a business theoretically is there as well. So kind of finding that nice medium of where your neighbors could know that they could come to you for something, but not necessarily like.
So you
Flashy
have
neon
customers
lights.
that actually come into and purchase it at your home, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah, for
Mm,
one
They
of my
won't be able to find him,
Fine.
right?
well, so we just said we'd put it on the agenda, and then we could come, you know, I told them kind of come up with some recommendations of what they think, and then,
Yeah, I think 8's probably the happy medium in my opinion. I think that there are some businesses that would do 16, but it could depend on property size. It could depend on other stuff. I think there should probably be some setback rules to it. I wouldn't necessarily just willy-nilly allow anybody to do whatever they want, but
well, because this also says they have to be attached flatly to the building, that I don't know
I don't
that.
know if I saw that in Hooper Code. I saw that in Weaver County Code.
So on this is 10458 that said home signs, and the last just thing said they must be attached fully to the building, not to exceed the height of the eaves. But if you only had a 12-foot square sign attached to your house, I don't know that anybody would ever see it, would they?
I'd prefer it to be out in, not necessarily the parking strip, but set back off,
Yeah.
kind of out of the way. I think you would want to have those sidelines on the road for anybody.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd have it attached to the house like I could, but it's all playing. I want to play within the rules, but
Well, as we know, some of ours came when we became a city from Weber County, and I don't know that we've ever adjusted this. We maybe have, maybe haven't. So sometime over time, things really do need to be adjusted.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I just add something real quick? so I had only heard bits and pieces while we were on our way over. One of the people had asked how our neighbors feel about it.
Oh, yeah.
So we're on 5100, and we don't have a whole ton in the way of super close neighbors. There's currently building the lot next door to the north, but otherwise is to be built. Across the street is to be built, and then there's a couple homes next to us. We have not talked to them about it, but it's not like we're in like the middle of our neighborhood. We are on a more main street.
Yeah.
So we have not approached any neighbors about it. We don't have anything specific set in mind on what we want to do. It's more we're wanting to find out, hey, are these this, before we put any time and effort into doing any kind of signage, we want to find out, how limited are these rules, and is there, room
Yeah.
for discussion to do something else?
Okay.
And there is a question on maybe not altering the full normal rules, but allowing conditional uses or whatever that way, and then neighbors would have to be notified or whatever. So I
Just want to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
open up the books a little bit about it and see where people are at is kind of where I'm at.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
So can I ask, what did we decide on the HVAC?
Oh, yeah, we didn't even ask Deborah.
Oh, on what?
The HVAC.
Oh,
How do you feel about moving forward with that, Debbie? We have 46,000 in the budget that was not spent on the remodel. Did you hear Morgan's plea for it?
No, but I know we need it and stuff. So are we going to look at the, I don't know, I always like to look at the Better Business Bureau and think of people, even if we know them. I like to look at their backgrounds and stuff before we go with anyone, because sometimes I've run across people I thought I knew real well, but didn't in the end. And I think we'd be wise to do kind of a little background on anybody that we're looking at.
so Debbie, Dave Taylor is Bruce Taylor's son. So I've known him since, well, he was a baby. So I think he's a good, I think any of these people we could vouch for their character. I certainly would. They're all,
I do too.
Yeah, they're-
I just like to double check on everything. I've known some people that I would have given my life for, but there were some things that I didn't know about it. So it's just sometimes I think we have to act as if we don't know people and look at where we're at with that situation and make sure that everything's where it should be, how the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. That's just my opinion as someone who's looking after large amounts of money.
Maybe we could do this then over the weekend. We could all kind of take a look at that because you can get it
Yeah.
online. And I don't think we're making a decision tomorrow. We're closed
No.
tomorrow, so maybe by the first of the week.
yeah.
Is that fair enough, Debbie? We can all just kind of reach out to the different bureaus on businesses.
Oh, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great to me.
Okay. Okay, another question that has came up that I just wanted to kind of run past you, and Taylor will be coming on here pretty quick because so if you see Taylor, then just stop and we'll go on. So the low sewer station that is on 6300, it's almost a 5100 south. No, excuse me, 4600 south, 6300 west, and it's our low sewer station. So for quite some time, probably since they built that building, the fence was wrong where the building is, and the person that lives in the house, it's the old Low home, and it's to the house that is on the north side of the house, has been using that property because he thought it was, and we thought it was. Well, it's not. So he would like to see about possibly then just leasing that property from us. I brought, these are all our Hooper leases that we have, and I know you wanted to talk about Hooper properties, so this would be one, leasing that property, not sell it to him, you know, certainly it's kind of like with the other ones we've leased, they can use it, but if the city ever needs it back, then we, you know, there's in the lease agreement, it tells them. But this came up because he wanted to do an oversized structure, but then when he did the survey, realized no, it would actually, part of it would be on the city's property. But Jared said that's one of our main sewer stations, so we would probably not be very wise to sell off that land, and probably not let him invest in an oversized structure. Maybe he could have the driveway going down that side if it was a gravel driveway or something. But there would be something then that would want to enter in if you, because that's what we thought from talking here at staff. Probably leasing it would probably be, he's been using it now for, well, the sewer's been in 17 years, going on 18 years. So he's been using it all this time, just not knowing that it actually wasn't his, that it belonged
What's he
to the
been using
city.
it for? Just
There's a corral, there was a horse that was there. It's just kind of part of his yard. And, you know, nothing was built on it. So,
Yeah, if he's gonna take care of it.
well, you wouldn't,
Yeah.
we really don't know why the fence was put where it was, but it was. So, we wouldn't have known either. You know, I think we all thought of the property. I mean, there really is that acquiescence.
okay, so the fence, is it a permanent fence on,
Our fence around the sewer
is
building.
it far enough north? It doesn't go to the edge of the city property, you mean?
No, the fence doesn't go to the edge of our property. And you can drive by there and look and see what you think. So it's right on it's on the southeast corner of 4600 South and 6300 South.
Well,
And
no, the sewer, but the fence, you were talking the fence on the.
it's on the north side of the
North side.
sewer building. But so you can look. And there's actually a stake that's out front, I think that was pink or something, wasn't it? And so if you drive by slow and look down, you'll see it, you know, it's pretty low to the ground, the stake. That's where the city-owned property actually is. So like we said, you know, we don't think.
Did he put the fence up?
Oh, no, we did, like 17 years ago. Yeah. So we all
Yeah,
thought,
I
but like I say, it's kind of about all these other leases, you know, that we have all along the slough, all along the walking trail with some of our other city-owned property. We let them lease it, and then, but right in there it says if ever the city needs it, we give them so much time. But they really are taking. I mean,
So what was Jared's thought on it? What?
well, we don't want to sell it.
Well, no,
yeah.
we wouldn't sell it.
Yeah, but he said, let
Just
him
leave it the way it is?
Yes,
With
but
the fence where it is and everything?
yeah, but probably not let him build a building on it, because then that would be
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't want to invest in an oversized structure that half of it was on city property either.
And then just draft a
Just
lease
a
agreement.
lease,
Yeah,
like we
that's-
did. Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten back to him about it because he just came in, because I wanted to run it past you first. But if we could draft up a lease agreement like these other ones that just say, because if not, if we made him move, then now Hooper City will have this, I don't know how many, it was quite a few feet. I can't remember now, Malcolm. What is it, like,
About 15 or 20 feet at least.
yeah.
I'd be a little concerned about the fence being in the wrong place. If it's a permanent type fence, you'd think we gotta get it in the right place, or he might fight that, say, well, you know,
Well, I think he's pretty aware that he did, you know,
That
well,
he
he wasn't aware till he did the survey, but now he's done the survey, he's aware that he
that he
doesn't.
doesn't own it.
Well, I
He
think
knows he doesn't own
I
it.
think, I don't know, this is just my thought, regardless if where the fence is, if we had a lease,
Mm-hmm,
I think
Yeah.
that would probably,
That would maybe
Satisfy,
describe that this
yeah.
property goes
yeah.
rather
so
than
many,
moving the
so many
fence.
feet north of the fence.
That's why I think like all these leasing, because I think the people that are leasing like along the trails, they know they don't own that. They know they're just leasing it. But a lot of them have moved their fences back right against the trail, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
Like people that are taking
Yeah.
care of it, the city appreciates
Oh, yeah.
them doing that. So we don't really want. That was the reason this was before me. I think even started with Corey Dale, so probably even before you. But I think the whole reasoning of it is we can't take care of all that. So it's really better to let people lease it and take care of it than
Sure.
to have the city, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay,
How about you, Debbie?
so if there's a lease agreement specific for this.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think. I think we could just have either Jared or Malcolm or somebody just write. I think it was Bryant before that would write these up. And before then, when I was going through these, looking at them, I don't know if it was Judy that drafted them or, Corey. I don't know, because some of these have been here for a long time, these lease agreements. So, well, we can talk to him. Like I say, we haven't mentioned it to him. He came in wanting, well, it was about getting a building built, wasn't it? And then when we realized that didn't really,
So do they have a time frame, or is it just in
so,
perpetuity or whatever?
yep, some of them have 50 years. Some of those that we did along have 50 years. Some of them don't have a time frame. What the lease agreement just says is that the terms is when the city wants it, and then there's like certain things in there that says the city will give them so many days, or like particularly if it was farm ground, that they would give them so many days waiting till crops were done. I was really surprised, and we think there's probably more lease agreements than even these, because Morgan found one today in a file somewhere else that we're thinking, okay, we probably have even more lease agreements. We're working on getting all these things back. So yeah, so they're, anyway. But this is our stack right here we have right now of these lease agreements. So, okay, well then we can, he is on, Taylor's on, okay. Did you have something you want to, Bryce, before we bring Taylor on?
Yeah. So first, on the rental property, is there an update on that? How's that coming along?
Our house?
Yeah.
I have a few concerns. One is we already talked about, they do have animals, and they
Right.
said that
That's what
he said he never was told they couldn't. I'm not saying that you didn't, but he just says he has no email correspondence, has no recollection of ever talking about. In fact, he said he remembers talking about they could have animals because the carpet was so old it wouldn't hurt it.
That must have been with Scott, but we could visit with Scott about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And as far as a couple of other issues that we had, they kind of cleared those up, I think, as far as like the cars. One thing we have talked about before Tomato Days, that it would be really good if we could get a fence put up, because they do have those dogs we just don't want them getting out into when there's going to be horses. So we've talked about maybe even seeing if they would let us, next door, even Alan's home, put the fence all the way across and up the one side that kind of blocks off those backyards, that keeps that separate. We have had a little bit of difficulty, but we're hoping as of today that'll be cleared up. We had not received any payment yet for the rent.
Not since they lived there?
Not since they've lived there.
So the renters have paid the property management, and the property management hasn't sent it to us. I have like trail of, hey, have you sent this? Here's our account. Have you sent this? Here's our account. We got in contact with them last week and said that they're switching online portals somehow. So once that's done today, he'll get the rest of the money sent to us.
So they're paying $2,000 a month. They're keeping $200, so we should have been getting $1,800 a month since October, but we now have gotten $2,000. But
I think he wanted to do a test send to a bank account. So make sure it went through. I don't know. But
yeah.
Okay.
So, but I went back through our minutes too, and I thought we talked about doing a 6-month lease just to kind of see. He said no, that was never expressed to him either. So they've signed a year lease. The hardest thing with all this, which we figured out, but next time we'll go, we hope better, because we never saw a copy. Never ever did they send us a copy of the lease agreement. And that's, the first time I saw it, I brought it to city council, and that's when we saw that pet addendum. So we didn't know there was animals, so there'd been animals for a while, because Morgan, how long did you try to get a copy, Morgan?
a couple months.
Maybe we need a different management company then.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, when I told him about the 6-month contract, he said, well, I thought the 6-month contract was his contract. He said, I didn't know you'd ever said 6-month contract with a house. And I said, well, from us talking about it, it was 6 months with a house, no animals, and he said, well, that's not.
Yeah, it was Cause yeah, he's tricky to work with.
Well, he
He is tricky.
just doesn't respond very well. Yeah, I think he's a nice man, but Morgan and I, both of us have left lots of, I'll call you back, we'll get together,
Do they have a brick and mortar building or is it just?
I don't know. I don't, all I have for him is just a cell phone number.
Okay. Well, if you could let us know as soon as they pay, just kind of see, because if not, then I'd be in favor of moving to a different management company.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, okay, I love animals, so I'm not saying that. We have a dog in our home too, so I'm not against that. But you have 2 large dogs that are 200-pound dogs. No matter how careful you are, there's going to be wear and tear.
Oh, yeah.
And that house was very well taken care of because we know how immaculate she was. I don't know that I'm a little bit cautious about what that. I don't know.
Yeah. So what month? They're probably 6 months, aren't they already?
Well, they moved in October. They were moving in this. That was my first concern. Is they were moving in the Saturday of Halloween Haunt, and that is the second Saturday in October. So that was either October 10th or 11th. But that was right off the bat. We had some problems because they turned the water on, and then the water was leaking, and we didn't know about anyway. And then when I asked him, he said, "Oh no, they haven't moved in yet." Well, yeah, they were because we saw 'em, like our guys down at Halloween Haunt saw them moving in. So, but we know they've been. They should have paid at least from the middle of October. So you have, November, December, January, February, March. I mean, there's been 6 months. We should have at least gotten almost $12,000, and I'm sure they did like a first and last month's rent. There should have been a cleaning deposit. I'm sure all of that should have came into play with that. So.
Okay. And I know we talked about like some projects coming up in years down the road. We're going to have to come up with some matching funds. I'd recommend, or just throw it out there, that money that we're making off that house, just earmark it for those matching funds. And which
That's a
project?
good idea.
Which project did you? Was it 5100 or
Which for parks, maybe.
for? Well, there's
Yeah.
because you know how we got funds for 5500. I guess there's another one coming up in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
right.
so that's on Flog
55.
55, the
55.
newest. So we have in fact, we just barely had the kickoff meeting from the Sinclair to go down to the Davis County border. And that was, I think he said this was Corey that had applied. So, UDOT's a long ways out in there. But now that money is now available to us this fall. And so we had this kickoff meeting. Wasatch Front Regional Council was there, UDOT, our JUB was there as far as doing plans. The next phase, then, we've been awarded, but I think you're right, Bryce. It's like 5 years probably down the road.
So we'll have to
but
come
I
up
think,
with something.
yeah, I think Taylor is going to talk to us about that too, because there's this other grant that he's going to tell about that could help us get some money as far as doing a park impact study. So, but Taylor had a brand new baby on Tuesday, so that's why he's not here with us in person. So Taylor, are you ready to talk to us?
Yeah, I'm here. I can talk to you guys.
Okay. I just barely mentioned about this grant. Taylor, I don't know what you want to explain to us now a little bit up front, and then certainly we have you on the agenda also.
Okay, is there any way I can share my screen with you guys?
Yeah.
We'll allow you.
Alright, what I've got, tell me if you can see what I've got on the table up there.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so, this is something that's been talked about for a while, about first, updating the IFFP for the Parks and Trails plan. And then, that kind of includes all the other
So that's the IFFP. What does that actually stand for?
That's the impact fee facilities plan.
Okay.
So updated, that's the plan that you come up with, and there's the IFA, which is the impact fee analysis. That's also included in that $88,000.
Okay. So this particular one is separate. I guess we got one for 100,000.
So,
Is that
no,
a different one?
No, so this would be the one. So what
Oh.
he's saying, this would be our parks impact fee, but if we get this grant, then we would only have to pay 17,600.
17,000. What's the one you said we got for 100,000?
That's that one down there, the general plan update and
Impact
Oh.
facilities.
Okay, so that one's
What was
different.
our IFFP, one impact facilities?
infrastructure. What do you?
So Taylor, it says like you've got it worked on and ready to submit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's something we can submit by next week.
Okay. I guess my only question, are there any strings attached to it as far as requirements that, you know, they want us to do or implement?
Yeah, so it's not federal, it's state, they're teaming up with the Division of Natural Resources, and I don't see any strings attached. There are, I mean, the funding opportunity, they would fund like, I don't know, some big projects. You know, they did one that was like a rodeo, I think they did rodeos, and those are the big projects, little planning grants. Are just pretty straightforward. And I don't see any strings attached to them.
This is a copy of it. Bryce, you can show you Dell.
So
Like,
we're just-
oops, sorry.
So those fees would go to you guys, is that correct, for doing it?
So yeah, a lot of that fee would come to JUV for doing that.
Okay.
But it also goes to the fee analysis, the economic, that fee analysis. That one I think was about $20,000 that would go to him.
Okay.
So the only thing we needed on that one, in that front page, is we need to have a letter of support from the city council. But, you know, we'll talk about this more too in our regular meeting, that if you're interested in having us apply for this, then Morgan could even just send this out to you and we could get, you know, you to sign it. So there was just that. There was a letter of support that I need to write, but it's pretty well written there. Morgan would just have to put our letterhead on it. And if there was anything specific we wanted to say, but I've dealt with the Utah Outdoor Recreation grants. I've actually written them before, but there really aren't strings attached other than like our match that's the 17,600, which would get us those impact fees for our
So we
park.
can- okay.
I mean, we'd get back lots more than that in
Sure.
our impact fees.
Okay.
I forgot what IFFP stands for. I just,
Impact.
impact facilities, what?
What did
Here we got a
IFFP
slow one here, so
again,
IF
Taylor?
I forgot too, so.
What did IFFP stand for again, Taylor?
That's the impact fee facilities plan.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's three parts to the updating the impact fee. That'd be like the master plan or the capital facilities plan. That's kind of comes up with your cost of like this project. We want to complete this project. Here's what it costs. We want to complete this project. Here's what it's cost. Then the impact fee facilities plan kind of breaks those down, saying like, yeah, this if it was say it was a water line. This water line's an 8-inch, but because of the new growth, it needs to be upsized to a 12. So the impact that the new development is causing was only upsized from an 8 to a 12 thing. So it kind of breaks it down based off of what the growth impact actually is. And then the third part's the fee analysis, which is what some economist, finance person breaks down, saying this is how much the fee should cost.
Okay.
So those three parts are needed to do that.
Okay. Sorry, Dale. I was just giving you a hard time.
I know Cammie had mentioned at our budget meeting that they really do require us to have, we can't charge something if we haven't done the impact fee study. So we can't just say, oh, we haven't had a park analysis since 2003, we think it should be this. No, legally we can't do that. They require you to do the study that actually will show what the impact is. And she said they came down really, well, she told us that in the meeting already, but they came down pretty strict on that we have to do these studies.
And there's another thing too. Using your existing impact fees that you've collected can pay for an update to your plan and your IFFP and your IFA. So I did message. We worked with Cami to figure out how much money is in that budget. Let's see. You guys have $32,000 in your budget for impact fees and parks. So you could pay for your local match using that pot of money that you have there. And that includes all these different plans here. So I mean, and I got more specifics about these sewers, these storm drains, transportation, and general plan. There's quite a bit of information. I don't know what's the best time to do that. Best now or another.
Yeah, you know what, we'll probably have to end our work meeting now, unless you have any questions for Taylor right now. And then, because they have to close this one out and start another Zoom. Do you have any specific questions for Taylor right now? And then we can have him present it more at our meeting, because there's more, because we have this whole traffic master plan too, or transportation is going to go through.
I'm sure we'll have some more questions. once
I
we-
think so too. Ryan said that he had, and we'll talk about this too, but he's messaged you about tonight we wanted to submit a name for appointment to planning
Oh, yeah.
commission. And do you have that we can swear him in? And then we also have the thoughts about possibly doing an alternate, because so far we've had a kind of a difficult time getting, well, one meeting we didn't have a quorum and we've been short. So did he mention that at all? on the
He did,
text?
yeah.
So that's something we can talk about
Okay.
too, so. Okay, thank you, Taylor. Does he have to get off this and then we get something else back on?
Yep.
Okay.
Use that second link, Taylor.
Okay, Taylor, we have another link. Okay, thank you. How are you? Her name, Morgan put them out today, and she said she don't know whether they're here or they're not here or not, or, I think, I haven't heard Lisa's not coming. She doesn't come, Bryce, change places with Lisa, she doesn't come. I don't know. I don't know if she's-
I'm gonna take a shower yet, so you don't want me that close.
No, I don't see her phone. We used to always turn her phone off, but then sometimes if I'm just working on something like that, she's not going to make it. So Trey, Bryce trying to scoot home, at least he's not coming. So I'm almost likely not going to make it. So, but we'll get Debbie back on, right? I mean, we can have a meeting because there's the three of us, so we're a quorum.
Well,
Debbie.
Debbie's,
Oh, it's Debbie.
Debbie can.
Debbie's on,
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. It'll be nice when we get up to the night.
I don't know if these are on.
Is it out or two? Morgan, I don't think our mics are on either.
Recording in progress.
Is that out?
Yeah.
Let's see who is.
Hey Debbie, could you talk one more time?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm a little scratched. I've got a little bit of a cold, so.
We got you loud and clear.
All right, great.
Peachy.
We'd like to welcome you to City Council meeting. It is Thursday, May 1st. We want to excuse Ryan Hill, who is not with us tonight, and Lisa Northrup, and we have Debbie on Zoom. So, and we appreciate all of you being here with us tonight. We are going to go ahead and have our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Wilcox, and then I will give the reverence.
Please repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to be here tonight as a community. We are so grateful for all of the freedoms we enjoy, for those that represent and serve our country, for our young men and young women that are serving the services. We're grateful for the community and for the neighbors and for the friendship and the fellowshipping we feel here. We ask you to always bless this community of Hooper. Please bless us as we make these decisions, that we will always be able to keep the best interest of our residents in mind, that we may be able to always do those things that thou would want us to do. We are so grateful for everything we have, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. We don't have any upcoming events, so we're going to start off with public comments. You'll be allowed to come up. You have 3 minutes if you'll come up and state your name.
Don't touch that. My name is Dylan Robinson. I am a resident of Hooper. Like was talked about in the meeting beforehand, I would like to have the small home occupation, or the home occupation signage looked at. And I would appreciate that getting on a future city council discussion for kind of voting on exactly where, and to be involved in some discussions on sizing and whatever potentially beforehand on that if we can. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
I'm Jay Thalman. I'm here for J.R. Ames. He's the property owner that lives next door to the sewer treatment plant over there on 4623 South, 6300 West. That Councilman Wilcox, it looks like, was going to talk about it in the public work meeting, but I wasn't there. Are you aware of that? JR was told it would be addressed today at City Council meeting. Has that changed, or?
We did, I think you probably came in after we addressed it. We actually did talk about it in the work session.
Okay.
And I think between the consensus of the three that are involved, that I think it'd be wise to have, just drop a lease agreement and allow him to utilize it as long as he doesn't put any structures on it, with kind of the thought that if the city ever needs it, then we would go ahead and occupy it.
Yeah,
That's what we've done with everybody else that has lease agreements. So.
I think the issue was there, he's trying to build a hay shed for his horses, so it'd be a pole barn of some type. Like you said, if there was some kind of issue where it could be a lease, even if it is a pole barn that could be removed at one time or another, if we did a 5-year lease or something like that, I'm not sure what he's really interested in, but he wanted me to report back to when his wife is graduating, so he needed to be there. Would that be all right for him to get back with you, Councilman Wilcox, and get something figured out there?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, it'd be all of our decisions, but yeah, he could reach out to me. I just think there might be an issue if there was a structure on it.
Yeah.
Maybe we would, I don't know, we'll just have to have a discussion.
Yeah, have you seen the picture of the property? Okay, so you guys are aware of the piece, how much land there is? 60 seconds. Okay, cool. Would you like to see a picture of
Sure.
it? Could I give you a piece? Is it
Yeah.
all right if I come up there?
Yep.
I promise I'm safe. Here's just a copy of the property, and if you look at the very back page, you can kind of see the little amount that he is looking at. He has been there for 18 years using the property until he went to put a structure on it. He didn't realize that he didn't own it. And so that's when he brought it to somebody's attention here to try to get that resolved. So I'll back out and I'll let him reach out and touch base with you guys. And I appreciate your time and effort. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
sounds really good, thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing no other public comments, then we'll go on to our first consent item, which is the approval of the minutes dated April 3rd. April 3rd, everybody reviewed those minutes? Were there any corrections, additions to the minutes? Debbie, did you have any corrections on the minutes?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you see any, Councilmember Fellers? No. Okay, then is there someone that would like to make the motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Flowers. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next thing we have on the agenda is a discussion on the RFP. This is something that we have talked about in the past. I know Debbie is the one that had wanted this on the agenda for the discussion. I don't know, Debbie, if you wanted to start with this or...
Could you repeat that, Sherry?
So the next item on the agenda is the discussion on the RFP. So I didn't know if you had something you wanted to start off on that discussion, if you just wanted me to talk about it, I wasn't sure.
I don't know as far on the RFP, I do think that there needed to be much discussion about it because we are compliant with all that we need to be on this $25,000, and our procurement ordinance is fine. And it's after we reach that we have to start looking at RFPs. And we've been at $25,000 or less except for the last couple years. And I think that we need to rein that in, and we should stay at $25,000 from now on.
Because the attorneys have sent in a contract, is that correct? That we
Yes.
responded back and they have it signed.
No, so they had sent in a contract, but then when we went through our finances, and if you go to our services and supplies and it says it needs to, anything over 25. So when we went through our accounts payable, we are already over the 25 and we haven't completed the year. So I went through our accounts payable. The very least I could ever see of one of their bills for the month was about $2,500. So even if we took the $2,500 for the year, and we've had some that have been upwards more than $5,000, just a little bit less than $5,000. So they always end. and part of the thing too, as we go back like this, I'll finish that sentence first, but we're paying more than 25,000. And so, you know, what the state auditor had said was that we are required to do an RFP. That doesn't mean that they can't bid it out again. You know, we just have to then accept bids for that because it is over 25,000. I know I have this, which we can look at again, which is the request for proposals. So I went through this and I highlighted everything because the majority of it is, you know, consent of city council. But I don't see how we get away from not doing an RFP because we are paying them more than that.
Did we look at the reason or the costs involved for the increased cost for our legal the last 2 years? Because I looked historically at it and we've never been near there. And but we have recently, did we get an itemized listing of what was being done so differently? Because we need to change that. And then if we do the RFP, then we would also need to do one for JUV because they're way above 25,000. And we probably need to do one for Richard, is it Richards and Reed? Or I can't remember our accounts. I mean, if we need to do it for one, we probably need to do it for all.
So to answer your first question, Debbie, I think Cammie, we figured out a little bit what had gone on from the budget before. As she said, there would be, for instance, 22,000 that were attorney fees that were listed under general. Then there would be another 20,000 that was listed under engineering under sewer. And she said, and when the question was even asked, why were those listed separately? And she said, well, she really didn't know. That was before she started doing the budget. So if you actually go through and add up accounts payable, which, and I don't know, she said she's going to send you that email, Bryce. I hope that you did receive that told the amounts. So the whole point of this is we are over the 25,000. As we mentioned before, this was something that the state auditor sent to us, not something that was, they were the first ones that contacted us, and this was back December of 2023 when they pointed that out. So that's the answer to that first question. This is something that we need to do, and if you go to our actual code, which is 217 services and supplies, where we do file that follow the state code. The second question, as he said, and we talked about this also in the budget meeting, so the reason why we did not have to do the RFP for our engineering was because of the sole proprietorship because of our sewer. You know, we talked about that. If there's a different part of our engineering we want to do, but then in some cases we will be paying for 2 engineers. So for every subdivision review, we're going to be paying a general engineer cost, we're going to be paying a sewer engineer cost, which could double the cost to the city. And so because of our relationship we have had with JUB, our sewer, everything they already have, all of our sewers, it really is cost effective to not be paying for two engineers. And the third part of that with Child Richards, which is also brought up, they are appointed. One thing I cannot find anywhere though, and maybe Dale, you know this, I don't know how many years they're appointed for. You know, that appointment was made before I was elected. So I don't know how many years we appoint a treasurer for. But you don't do RFPs for your treasurer because that's something that is appointed.
Okay. My thoughts are about our legal is along the same lines as with JUB. The fact that our legal is so well versed in Hoover, you could not replace their knowledge. It's much the same as with JUB and their knowledge of our sewer system. So that's why I'm concerned. You can find an attorney fresh out of school who will, I'm sure, outbid anyone. But what do you lose in respect to that? I mean, you lose the knowledge. They've been with the city since its inception and has helped with almost all of our ordinances and stuff, and, that's my concern is that we lose something like that. Whereas, you know, JUB brings their specialty and our attorneys bring their specialty. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, so I have a solution, I think, for this. Here's the Utah Procurement Code. It says municipalities have the authority to adopt their own individual procurement code, but it must be adopted by ordinance. Municipalities, councils, and the Utah Housing Authority may choose to adopt some or all of the Utah Procurement Code. So if I go to our procurement code on services and supplies, it says whenever the total price of a contract for services or supplies is estimated to be greater than $25,000, the procedures of Utah Code 10.720 as mentioned shall apply. I looked back at our attorney fees over the last several years, and just recently that's when it spiked and hit the threshold. There was some legal issues that were unexpected with the developer that were lumped in there as well. My thought, and what I would like to do, since we need to stay within a budget, we put it at $25,000 and we work to stay within that budget. Then we'd be following the state code and our own ordinance. And I've spoken with Reed, and he feels like that's, you know, he says, yeah, it's spiked over the last little while. It probably shouldn't have. So, and I'm kind of, I get the thing with JUB, however, they do a lot more than just our sewer. So in all fairness, in Debbie's argument that, you know, we can solicit for other engineering services through another firm, and they can do our, and JUB can be on the sewer side. So in all fairness, I mean, we voted as a council not to do the RFP out of respect to Brandon Reed and their tenor, their actual contract from resolution back in 2002, I believe, is actually legally still in force, but we decided to go ahead and update that contract, and they've sent it over to the city, and they're just waiting for that to be signed. So that's my solution to the RFP, is we put it at 25, because that's our estimated, and we stay within our budget.
Unfortunately, the state auditor does not recognize, he said this, you cannot just say an attorney can be a sole proprietor, because there are a variety of attorneys that can come in and do that position. Like I say, that doesn't mean that we won't put out the RFP, they bid, we continue to have them provide our legal services. We do need to follow, though. We have already spent, we're already over this amount for this year. So unless if we, from now till the end of June, say we are not going to use any, but we're still over. Bottom line, no matter what, we have still already paid more than $25,000. I just, my question is, I just don't understand why we are just not trying to follow state code and our own code and just put out an RFP and let them rebid it. You know, you are the ones that will decide that. And if you go through anything, these requests for proposals, you know, you go through, you put it out, they rebid it. The same we can do with any. If you want to do an RFP for whoever, we can do that. I just feel like we do need to legally be following what we are required to do by the state.
You know, the gentleman from the state said that it was, that they highly suggested we do this. He did not say that we were legally required to do that, because I asked him specifically that. And so I was kind of surprised that he said, this is something we highly suggest you do. So it was, he told us that it was not legally binding, which I thought was a little different than what we were understanding at the time. And I guess the whole thing just came at a bad time. You know, they were fired, you know, after a little mishap, and it just kind of, all of this has just been bad timing, I suppose. And So that's why it just doesn't set well with me, or I don't think it looks good for the city.
So one thing the auditor did say, if you remember, when you asked if it was required, he said it was required to do the RFP. The recommendation was how often you do those. The recommendation was that RFP should be done within every 3 to 5 years. And then when you said, is this required or recommended? It is required to do an RFP. The recommendation is how often we do those. And this didn't just come up. You know, I brought in that copy of those emails. This actually was requested of the city back in December of 2023. So this has been over almost a year and a half now that the state auditor has been saying to us, you do not have a binding contract, show us your contract. What we do have was a resolution that was signed. So again, I don't see what the objection is to do an RFP, let them bid. You get to choose, city council chooses. If that's who you so choose for your legal, then we sign a contract, and then we can be on legal grounds that we're supposed to, and then every so many years, however the city feels necessary, then we do it as we're supposed to.
I think if we do my suggestion, I think we would be complying. We would 100%. And there's nothing wrong with, staying in a budget. And it was the last year that we had the spike. And I don't believe the city auditor came looking for the problem. I think this quote supposedly issue was brought to them. I mean, they're not in there as being a police force when the person that complained didn't realize we did have a contract with our attorneys. And so that was kind of a bogus complaint. And that's what started all of this, was a complaint, a grammar request or whatever, what have you. That's what started it all. Else we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Again, you're right on that. I don't know where that came from. The first email I ever received was after I was elected, and we all received it. I believe Dell, you had received one, Councilmember Fowers, in December. But again, we're already over the 25, so what do we do now? And so as of right today, we have already paid our legal counsel over 25. So if we want to say, we put out an RFP, we get our attorney, and from then on we say, we're not going to ever pay them more than $25,000. But sometimes that is really hard to do, because just as you mentioned, we had a litigation that did involve some of our attorneys. It also involved other attorneys as well, and we only need to count what we paid. We don't know, as a city, this is really echoey. You don't know from situation to situation what attorney you're going to need. So yes, you're right, everybody needs to stay within a budget. But you saw county increased our budget because once she found there was money, one place for the attorney, another place for attorney, and as a council we talked about, why do we have money in the budget in the sewer for the attorney? Do we ever use the attorney in the sewer? Probably not. And I don't remember what number she ended up landing on, but I think at that last budget meeting it was either $40,000 or $45,000 a year for attorney, which their price is going up, which is understandable because they haven't increased it. I don't know if we would ever get legal services for a city that we could get for $25,000. Most cities are upwards in the 100,000 plus range, so I think that sounds like a nice idea, but I don't think we will ever be able to stay within $25,000 for legal services for a city.
Well, this is just a discussion on our agenda, and I agree with what Council Member Wilcox said. You know, we budgeted at $25,000, and we've done that year after year, and that's what has to stay in place. If it doesn't exceed the if our budget doesn't exceed 25,000, then we don't have to issue an RFP, and the council already voted to rescind the RFP for legal counsel. So I'm a little surprised we're even addressing it again.
So just as to reiterate, in our budget, we do not, for next year's budget, have 25,000 for legal services. As Cami said, there was I think it was 22 or 23,000 that was listed under general for legal. There was another 20,000 that was listed in sewer for legal. So she combined that, and if you look at so we have, it was either $40,000 or $45,000 in our budget next year for legal. So we have been spending that much for legal. It's just been listed in different places. And I think even Councilmember Hill brought up and said, well, has this been hidden? And she said, no, it's just put in they're in different places in the budget. So the reason why this is coming up is because our code, state procurement code, says anytime we have anything over 25,000, if it's a contract, you need to do an RFP. So that's why cities are required to do bids. That's just the legal process, and I think part of the reason why they did this is just so it is transparent, it is fair to cities, so you always have to get bids. And again, I don't see where we have any choice but to follow what we need to legally do. Everybody else has to do this. It's an RFP that you do if you have a legal contract over 25,000. So I think this is something that we do, and as I mentioned before, we have this.
So are you saying that we never have to get one for JUB?
What was that, Debbie? Sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
Are you saying that we don't ever have to get one for JUB because they have, I can't say the word, that they have special knowledge of the system that we have?
So what the state auditor explained that night at our city council meeting was that JUB could be considered a sole proprietor, which if there is only somebody that, because our sewer system, if we had the normal sewer system of everybody else in the United States, we probably could go to any engineering firm and have them help us, because most of them do all of the work through their sewer districts. That is not the case with our sewer system. We have our vacuum sewer system. There's only one other that I know of in Utah that's not as large as ours, and there's only a handful that are even in the United States. So that is the reason why he said that we could count them as a sole proprietor. Yes, we can do an RFP for JUB. Certainly we can, and if that's what you want to do, we can. I was saying, though, I don't see that we would want to have two engineering firms. So it's pretty evident that we need to keep JUB for our sewer. And I don't know that we want to be paying two engineering firms for everything we go to do. It just, I don't think would be very cost effective.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't a guaranteed provider of ours just because of that.
So as Councilmember Fowers mentioned, this is a discussion. My recommendation is, Morgan could send you out this RFP again and you could look through it. As I mentioned, all an RFP is just a request for proposal. It says request for proposals for legal services, and this was one that was given to me by the state. I know before we talked about it, there was some language that was in there and I know there were some, but what my suggestion would be, then let's send this out to everybody and everybody look through it, and then we could have this back on the agenda, excuse me, another day to look through and see what you want to do. And as I mentioned, I went through and highlighted everything you do is city council, consent to city council, approved by city council. I know there was the one question that it came up, which certainly this maybe needs to have some adjustments. that we talked about, you know, who do we authorize that can call or not call, and that would be my recommendation. We send this out, let everybody do it, review it, see what they would like to do, if they have any recommendations, and then we could have this on the agenda at another time to talk about this.
My recommendation is just to do what I said, and if we go over the 25, then maybe we revisit it like next year, but I did go back and look over the previous years, and they were like 19,000, 20,000. Yeah, they did raise the rates, but I know Reed's not planning on coming as often. So, I mean, that's where I'm leaning towards.
I think the only way we'd be able to be in compliance then is you would want to change and have your procurement code to be over 25,000, because as I mentioned, we are already over 25,000 this year. So if we use not one other legal service between now and June 30th, we are already over. And we know we're going to have we know we're going to have other legal things that come up, because we have some things that they're working on for us right now. So we would just have to say, and again, that's not what's been in our budget for the past years. So maybe that's something Bryce or Councilmember Wilcox should sooner look at, is changing our procurement code to have it be something higher than 25,000. That is following the states, but we could always change that as well.
You would like that, right?
I don't think so. I think 25 is good. You know, that's the same thing like we talked in our work meeting, was about the furnace, you know. As a city, it's much easier. You do your home, you go and you want somebody to come do a service for you, you hire somebody and they come. That's not how it works within a city. Because of the codes that we have to follow and transparency, we are required to do certain things, and I'm good with 25,000. But what I don't.
Okay, well, we had a good discussion, so maybe we can move on. Let Taylor.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so we have Taylor, who is on Zoom with us, and he's going to be having a discussion about our impact fees, and then also our next thing he can tell us about too is his transportation plan.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about these impact fees with you guys. I'm just going to try to share this table. You can look at.
Where's our screen, Malcolm? I'm just teasing. You're good, I'm just teasing.
Alright, almost there. Alright, can you guys see this table?
Yes.
Alright, yeah, I'm just tasked with trying to figure out more about how we can start applying some impact fees on some of our utilities and updating certain impact fees that we currently have. The utilities that we have there listed here for the sewer impact fee, parks and trails, impact fee and storm drain. The transportation master plan listed there is something that's already been completed, but I thought I'd show it there as something that we're working on. And then the general plan update, commercial standards. But the parks plan, that's something that we wanted to do for a while, and so now I came up with the cost for it, and while I was doing that, we kind of found a good opportunity to the Utah Recreation Outdoor and Planning Group that would give us an 80% grant for that. So the city would then, the local match for that would be $17,000. I want to talk a little about the sewer master plan and impact fee. So I actually started doing this assuming that we didn't have any planning cost of $150,000 came out. You know, sewer's pretty complicated, especially hookers. Planning for that is a little bit more costly, but we actually just found out that we actually have, this was Tracy Allen before he left, he actually got a lot of planning done for our sewer and would greatly reduce the cost of that to be able to apply an impact fee. I mean, somewhere and reduce it by half. To do the impact fee facility plan and do an impact fee analysis, those are kind of separate. Those would still cost about $25,000 a piece, but then to come up with a more of a capital improvements list or a sewer impact, like the plan for the plan, that majority of that work has actually already been completed. So that's some really good news there. And then our storm drain plan. This one's kind of complicated. So one point to notice is back in February, Hooper is part of the MS4 permit with the state of Utah. That's the permit that municipalities work with in the state of Utah to ensure that water quality, stormwater management is being practiced properly. That's what every municipality in Hooper and Weber counties participates in. So we had our audit back in February, and then they are going to notify us 90 days after that audit, which is coming up in 2 weeks, of where we fall short in certain things. I'm afraid there's going to be, we fall short in a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of improvements to the stormwater management plan that we're going to have to include, and that also includes part of our stormwater management plan, master planning. So it's not something that Hooper has really done a whole lot with, as in planning for storm drain. A lot of the storm drain that we do is developer driven. They just develop what they need for their development. They construct whatever they need for their development, and that's kind of how we've done it. But I'm afraid I haven't received the audit yet, but I think there's going to be a larger push or requirement really for us to include in our master planning. And so I didn't really even try to come up with a realistic cost for that. Well, it's not realistic, but an accurate, it's more of a guess of what that cost is going to be, because I think there's going to be a lot of state requirements that are going to have to be included in that cost, which are going to drive it up higher. But that's something that we haven't really been collecting impact fees on. A lot of municipalities do. I mean, I looked it up for West Point. They charge $4,000 an acre for a developed acre of impact fees. So we might have to spend a lot to be able to start collecting impact fees for storm drain. But I believe that there's a lot of money that can be collected from impact fees for those projects. Maybe I'll stop right there. Is there any questions you want to talk about with the sewer, parks, or storm drain impact fees?
I have one question on the sewer. You mentioned that Tracy had done some work prior to him leaving. So that 150 could be less? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be significantly less.
Okay.
Yeah, we already have plans for east area sewer and west area sewer, which are going to help us out a ton when it comes to doing the IFFP and the IFA.
So you're...
At that point, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, it really then is going to come down to kind of like a buffet style of, do you guys want this information? Do you want to know how much our lift stations are pumping? Or do we want to know this, so you can kind of walk down the buffet aisle, say, we want some of this, we want some of this, we don't want that. And so that, the cost to do those certain things would change a lot. There's a lot more that goes into that.
So it looks like, so do you think for roughly 200, we can do the sewer parks and storm drain? Is that kind of what
I mean, if you're looking at getting that, if we got that grant for parks, then
right?
yeah, I feel like that's really realistic. Let me show you. So this is where I looked at, compared what you, did you guys still see what?
Yes.
Okay, you still see it. Where did I lose? I can't see what I'm looking at. Okay, there it is, sorry. So yeah, West Point Cities, what their impact fees are. They're collecting $100 for sewer, $2,000 for parks, $4,000 for storm drain, $1,500 for transportation. And this is what I believe is accurate for Hooper City. For parks is $12,000, so that fee would be double. And then I guess there's one kind of larger impact fee that Hooper City does. I think some of it goes to, or maybe a large portion of it goes to Central Weaver Sewer. And that's $4,000. So I think it was about $3,000 short compared to West Point. That we really could be collecting, which would easily pay back some of the cost for those things. And I'd like to, and also talking about the cost, this is kind of, I mean, JB and Hooper have worked together for a long time. The way, like, we just have worked well together. We do a lot of these projects based off of time and material, assuming that we're doing this for as efficiently as possible, and then charging for what that actually costs. Not to make any, like, you know, saying throwing out 150 out there, committing you guys to saying that's the price that it's going to be, and if we do it more efficiently, then we make more money. That's not the way we've done business with Hooper, and we'd like to keep doing it the same way for these impact fees, is keeping it on a time and materials aspect, and just do this as efficiently for the city as possible.
Taylor, will you go to that next slide that you showed, the comparison of the, yes, this one. This is one thing that we've talked about with our staff. We haven't been collecting, and it's not that we're trying to say we don't want you to build in Hooper, so we're not trying to overly increase our impact fees, but new homes do have an impact on the city, and we haven't been collecting these. So we've gone to do, like, for instance, a road project, and someone will say, well, you're using your road impact fees. Well, we're not, because we don't collect one. And the same with this storm drain. You know, we charge $5 a month per resident, but that is not an impact fee. That is just our to keep going, and then they had to do the audit. And so I agree with what you said, Taylor. We would get that money back pretty quickly if we impact, you know, raise, because we're just way far behind, and we don't even have impact fees on what we should be charging. Does anybody have any more questions on this particular part for Taylor? Okay, they don't have any questions on this, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I came here kind of presenting the budget and money information, like, want to see closer into, like, what the scope and fee would be, what certain tasks we could maybe eliminate, what we could add into. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that can go into those to really pin down the needs of the city. But I think it's something that is really needed, and we'd be happy to help out.
So that just sparks one question. So the in-depthness you go, does that determine how much more? Say if you do 10 items or you can't do 10 and we decide, we only want you to do 5, does that determine the dollar amount we can charge if we went deeper into the study? Or is it just the same?
Not so much. I think it would be about the same. You know, if you're trying to save, say, just $10,000, I don't think it would necessarily reflect in what the impact fee collection would be. It was just assisting in what plans you're trying to make in the future. What projects might, it might just end up in the quality of your plan, your 7 years, 10 years from now. The way I see it. With our sewer lift stations, there's kind of a lot of question of actually how much sewer are we pumping and vacuuming, and if that's something you wanted to know for sure, start monitoring how much flow is going through there, you could do that. Or if you just want to assume, saying, I think this is going to get us pretty close to what we need, you can go that path, save some money, not really knowing if that's exactly what the city needs for 10 years from now, kind of thing.
Well, I think because of the uniqueness of our sewer, it would be good to maybe have a little more accurate than maybe not, because from my understanding, those of us that are on the vacuum sewer, yes, I mean, you could change it, but it's just very expensive to ever change that. So I'm not saying we go with the Cadillac version, but I would like to have, I think, a little more accurate information on the capacity or the where or how long we think, especially those that are in the, in the vacuum, maybe more so than just the lift stations.
I do have one comment, Taylor, maybe you can look into this, but it was my understanding that our system is pumping roughly 40% less material than, say, like the system from Ogden. And I think that would be good information to know, where we could go to Central Weaver Sewer District and tell them, hey, we probably ought to be charged accordingly. We shouldn't be paying. And I don't know if we are. If we're paying the same as Ogden City, but our system is pumping less, we should probably be charged less, in my opinion. So before we go that route, I'd be curious to see if that is in fact true, but that's what I have been told.
Yeah, I could see that, and then one thing they would say is, well, prove it, right? And I don't know if we have a great way of proving that, but sewer districts they're kind of hard to work with sometimes, honestly. They kind of are the big dogs, and big money, so but it would be worth looking into and planning for.
Any other questions on this part then before we have Taylor discuss the transportation plan? Because this is something we have to make a motion on if we approve this transportation master plan. And this is also something that they've been working on for a number of years. Any other questions? Debbie, any questions for Taylor on this part before we move on?
No, none from me.
Okay. Either you? Okay, Taylor, thank you. Then let's go on to then the discussion on the transportation plan.
Yeah, so that transportation plan, this was started back in 2022 and it's just kind of finally getting finalized. It's the same thing as we see in these sewer parks and storm drains. If we needed to apply for it, we'll start doing an impact fee facilities plan and impact fee analysis. But what it really is a good has a different plan, saying actually we plan to have some interblock connectivity that connects this block to that block. We have something to enforce the developer into doing it that way, the way the city's planning it out. So, it includes the growth rates, it includes the future West Weaver corridor that will be coming through Upper, counting how many vehicle trips are being made on these roadways, do this and that. So it really is a really good plan. Been through a lot of review. There was a couple engineers along the way that there's been some turnover going on from Tracy to me, from Brian to me, and been working with Public Works closely to make sure we get everything that they see is needed, and I believe that's now something that's ready to be adopted and be used by the city.
Are you there, Taylor?
Yeah,
You're really hard to hear, but we can hear you, but it's really quiet. But I do have one question, and to be honest with you, I haven't gone through this whole plan, but in the state roads in particular, I know obviously they're maintained by the state, but it's my understanding if we don't have, I'm going to talk kind of like bicycles, bicycle traffic, because that's pretty popular out here. Are there provisions as this plan goes forward and as things progress, are there provisions to have those bike lanes on the state roads as well as our roads? I didn't see it, but I could be missing it.
In master plan, transportation master plans in general, do include active transportation, and when it comes to adding pedestrian bike lanes on the state roads, that's up to them to do. We also looked at it on the city roads. In our 10-year plan, there didn't seem to be a need for any pedestrian bike lanes on city roads. It does include the trail system. Like, they did analyze that trail system, saying that this could be used for pedestrian travel, bicycles, instead of the cost that would be going into the city roads, adding those lanes in there. So it does not propose to have those plans on any city roads in the next 10 years, seeing it's not needed, or it's not, not needed based off of growth. But it did analyze it, looking into to see if it was needed or not.
I wonder if we could look at maybe doing, because I know a lot of people bike out here, if we just designated one or two roads that go north and south, because those state roads are just too busy, in my opinion. I don't know, it's just a thought, to get them safely through the town. Maybe look at even doing one road, and then bikers know that that's their safe access north and south to the trail system. Just a thought.
It does, I would say it does add the plan for widening of the existing roads in certain places so that there will be a shoulder, an asphalted shoulder that bikes would travel on, compared to some of these really narrow roads that we have in the city. If that's sufficient, to say that these roads people could ride on the shoulder.
Is there a way to make that shoulder bigger, a little wider, without doing a designated bike lane?
That would be kind of hard based off of the right-of-way width, dedicated right-of-way width the city owns. It wouldn't be that easy. Say that. Nothing's possible.
I know Debbie and Debbie could attest to this as well. We've gone to a few workshops that the state, it's usually through Wasatch Front Regional Council and UDOT, and there is a master plan. Every single time, Debbie and I have identified to do a bike trail coming down, because if you go at 5600 south up through Roy, now that they've redone their road, they have a bike trail. And I pointed out, that doesn't do us any good in Hooper. You have this really nice bike trail, then you come to Hooper and it ends. So I know Debbie can tell you as well, every time we draw on there, you need to have a way then to get down there. We need it going across 5900. They'll have a trail going up halfway up 4000. And again, I've said, but that doesn't do Hooper any good, because how do we get there? You could get hit and killed before you ever made it to where their bike trails are. So we just barely had to redo a new one. I know I attended a Weber State. I know Debbie was on Zoom. So they do have these quite often, and we did just barely submit that. Whether the state does it or not, we really don't know if they will, but we do every single time. And Debbie might want to add something to that as well. We always do identify and add. We would really like some bike lanes out here in Hooper. Do any of you have any more questions then? As I mentioned, this is something that we do need to have an motion on to approve this transportation master plan. And like Taylor had mentioned, not to reiterate anything he said, but it really does give direction. And when we have developers come, that as far as he said about interblock connectivity, you know, if you go through, it starts on page 26 of the master plan, and it goes through and starts to identify roads and tells us, okay, this is what they see. And of course, this is going out to 2050, so this is actually a 25-year plan, but it'll tell you then these are potential roads that they think they should widen, that sometime might possibly have curbs, how much money that's going to be. So they always recommend, and really it's somewhat mandated, that cities do have master plans. So at any given time, you can look through and say, okay, this is something that could be coming within the next 25 years. So do you have any questions? Is this something that you feel ready? Because we do need to make a motion to adopt this transportation master plan.
I just have one other question. So this is a separate item from the general plan update, right? It's totally separate.
Yes, that's correct.
So my only concern would be, what are the other council members think? Is this something we need to get done like right? I know time is of the essence. Can we table it until Ryan and Lisa are here, or do we need to? I guess Taylor would know the answer to that.
I would say this process was started in 2022. It's gone longer than it should have. That also means it could go longer if it needed to, but in my mind, I think it's something that's ready to be adopted. And there can always be amendments, and then there's usually any updates, like periodic. I think it's every 10 years it kind of should be updated, just to make sure it's all the growth that has happened in 10 years has gone according to the plan. So,
Okay.
if you could wait, if you wanted to wait another 2 weeks or a month, it's not going to kill anybody, but we can always, plans can be changed, and the details in the plan can always be amended.
Okay.
As needed.
I mean, that was, you answered that question. If we can amend it, then.
Do we have a cost on that?
I don't. It can be simple. We'd like to have a paragraph about bike lanes, or considering bike lanes. That's nothing.
The transportation plan, it shows our match is what, 6,000? So what?
So this is already been completed. I just wanted to point that out, that this plan was paid for 97% by a grant, and then 6% has already been paid for by the city. the past 2 years, so
So
it's already done.
what's all paid for?
It's all paid for.
I do know that Taylor and Jared have been reviewing this and working on it. We had this now for a few months that was going to be coming to the agenda, and then there was like a few tweaks. So I know Jared has reviewed this and feels confident that this is the plan that should be adopted.
Okay. Well, if it's all paid for, I'd make a motion that we, right, I mean, we've already paid for the plan, make a motion that we continue on with the transportation master plan.
Okay, we've had a motion made by Councilmember Fowers. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second made by Councilmember Wilcox. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Debbie, did she hear us?
Aye.
Oh, okay. Okay. That motion carries. Okay, the last thing we have then is we had a vacancy on our planning commission. We had a committee that met, and tonight after having those interviews, we would like to, with your consent, appoint Travis Bates to be our new planning commission member. I don't know if you have any questions for him. Would you like Travis to come up and ask anything?
Travis Bates, Hooper resident.
So my question is, do you have enough time to do this?
I do.
So that's kind of a joke, because I've seen you here for the last 3
Yeah,
years.
I think I can fit it in.
Yeah, I
so.
can fit it in. Can you get along with that guy over there?
Probably not. Nobody does.
There's enough gap. It'll be okay.
So, Travis, one question I have for you is you've attended these meetings, and you have, like you said, you've done, and I've noticed you here for several years, both council and commission meetings. How do you feel like that's prepared you for applying for this position? Do you feel like you've had good training, good exposure? What happens, what doesn't happen?
Training, not so much, but the exposure piece, I think it gives a good backstory. I think it sets me apart that I'm going to be able to kind of hit the ground running a little bit. I already know some of the backstory behind some of the things that are coming up before the commission and the council. I've paid attention to decisions that were made. I've asked a lot of questions and how they reach those decisions, so that you can kind of apply that kind of knowledge to future decisions as well. So I think there's good members on both the council and the commission that have been great role models, and really, it's a pretty big bar to get over. So I think there's a lot of growth coming to Hooper, and there's a lot of growth already here. There's a lot of challenges. I mean, we're going through some of the numbers for the city that I think it needs to be taken seriously, and that's why I've been here the last couple of years. I live here. I don't want to just complain about it on Facebook. I want the knowledge, and I want to make sure that I'm a part of the future of Hooper, and I want to have a decision in where I raise my family.
Well, I agree. You are someone that's been here. We've always appreciated your support with both Planning Commission and City Council. So is there someone that would like to make the motion to appoint Travis Bates as our new Planning Commission member?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to appoint Travis Bates as the new planning commission member.
Motion was made by
I'll second.
Councilmember
I'll
Wilson,
second that.
seconded by Councilmember Maragoni. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and swear you in, Travis, right now while we're thinking of it.
That's so you can show up next week, too.
It's next week?
Okay, raise your right hand. I, Travis Bates,
I, Travis Bates,
have been appointed to the office
have been appointed to the office
of Hooper City Planning Commission.
of Hooper City Planning Commission.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and that I will discharge
And I will discharge
The duties of my office with Fidelity.
the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Congratulations, Travis.
Thanks, Dad.
Okay, one thing we talked about last night too in the interviews was possibly recommending that we have one alternate. Because of now the size of our planning commission, we have to have 4 members there to have a quorum. And so far we have had some difficulty having always a quorum. So that's one thing we wanted to discuss about the possibilities. And a name that we had thought of, we would like to recommend is Nate Denny to be the alternate. With an alternate, they would also come to the planning commission meetings, that they would only have a vote if we were short a planning commission member. So I didn't know we could discuss that, if that's something that you would feel like, and like I say, this was something that the committee talked about last night after the interviews.
So it looks like Nate's here. Can we ask him some questions?
Yes,
No,
Nate, would you
I
go?
think this decision probably ought to be brought before the full council, but I'm willing to entertain it for sure, so. Speaking, Nate,
How are you?
so tell us about your profession in the
So-
rural world.
Yeah, so I used to own a business that cleaned and video inspected underground pipes, so I'm very familiar with the underground pipe world and the development and, municipal side of the management of and maintenance of facilities within municipalities. I don't own that business anymore. We sold it last year, which ended up making it so that I have a little bit more free time on my hands. I do still work there, but I manage it on a high level basis, less day to day, and yeah.
I knew that. I didn't know you sold your company though. Good
Yeah.
for you.
We didn't spread the word too much. It just kind of go about doing our thing as quietly as possible and yeah, living.
So do you know Jared? You know Jared fairly well then,
I
right?
do know Jared fairly well. Yeah, we work with him on occasion as we've helped the city with some of their sewer and storm drain.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also familiar with the development process. I developed my piece of land that I live on, split it into 2 lots, so I worked through that process and the approvals, and I learned a lot during that. So that kind of helped move me in the right direction to prepare me to be more involved and help me get a different perspective from the other side of the fence.
That's all I got.
Anything else? We're good?
So maybe what we could do then, because like you said, it would be good to have the full council here. Maybe we could, if not agreeing to anything yet, but we do have a planning commission meeting next week that if you were able to attend, so and then we could have it on the agenda for our meeting on the 15th about voting to have an alternate. And if we did, I would like to recommend from our committee, that was their recommendation, to have it be Nate Denny.
Would we have to change the ordinance since there's not an alternate stated within the ordinance?
Yes, we would. That would have to be rewritten in there. And like I mentioned, I think it might be a good thing because we have, like I said, had a difficult time. I'm not sure if we've had even everyone there so far to our planning commission meetings. And so I think it would be a good idea, especially with the workload. Well, I'll see this next meeting that I think it would be a good idea to have an alternate.
I have one thought that, maybe this could be an option. We'll just use Travis Bates as an example. He's been coming for probably 4 years. I think ever since I've been involved, I think he's harassed me a little bit here and there, but we're friends. What if we, kind of offered Nate the same thing? Why don't you come for 3 months and come to all the meetings and just kind of get up to speed before we actually appoint. I don't think there's a rush, but I don't know, that's a thought that we could talk about, because obviously we would have to change an ordinance, which could take a month or 2, who knows. But anyway, I think Nate would be willing to do that.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing nothing else on the agenda, would ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Flowers,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilmember Wilcox. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.